Where the tall poppy syndrome really kicked in was when I first started blowing up on social media, because I was getting hundreds of thousands of followers, hundreds of millions of views, and I couldn't even make any money. I was really struggling and I was in debt and I was in a low and I had no idea what to do. But then I'm getting hundreds of messages every day about how amazing I am. And you've got this polarity between like, everyone thinks I'm doing so well, but I'm actually extremely struggling. I'm in the lowest point I've ever been.
If someone only knew one thing about you, what should they know?
One thing I want to be remembered for is June last year, I had 300 followers on Instagram, and my mentor sent me a challenge to post a video every day of June last year, and I was heartbroken, lost, failing business. And then by the end of June on TikTok, Instagram combined, had over 100,000 followers. Whole life changed. And the crazy thing is my goals were bigger than I achieved. And what I achieved was unheard of, fastest growing in the country. But I was that confident and delusional that it was gonna work. And just so happened that it did. There's all of these content gurus out there. I'm over them. First 3 seconds, hook, like trending audio, all this bullshit. Like it's all bullshit. Doesn't matter. Quit all the bullshit. Like there's so much fluff. Go after feeling. If you are watching your video that you're about to release and you finish watching it,
is there a story that you haven't shared or that doesn't get a lot of publicity that's really the fabric behind the guy you are today?
I think
I like to go deep on a first question, which I'm very impromptu, so I'm just going to roll, okay?
Let's roll.
If someone only knew one thing about you, what should they know?
That I'd give things a go. I feel like an emphasis on my life is I've actually done things that I've wanted to do without thinking too much about the future and what the consequences could be. That's led to me putting myself in copious amounts of stress, I would say, risking too much and having this absurd confidence that things are going to be okay. And kind of kicking the can down the road in a sense, going, I just push those problems down the road. I just want to keep taking risks, keep leaning in. I'm going to be a multimillionaire when I'm 20 anyway, so it doesn't matter. This is what my thoughts were growing up, or not growing up, but from probably the age of 17. And so I think one thing I want to be remembered for is that I actually tried and I actually did things that I wanted to do. And typically when you do that, there's people that don't support it because it's not really traditional or it's not a norm. And so people kind of want to tear that down or lack belief. And then it's just been this constant game of overcoming that, getting some results in the thing that I said I was, or not getting results, but still doing it anyway. But then getting results in some things and then people come around and they always come back. And so it's just been this constant thing of trying things that I truly want to do and not leaving things on the table.
Where does this obscene confidence come from?
All the low times, I would say. It hasn't always been there. I would say I was quite a bubbly person, quite an energetic person, a just captain of the footy team, popular guy at school. So I had this kind of extroverted nature about me. And I think with that led this thing where I did have a bit of confidence growing up, potentially just this confidence that might have been more surface level. If I were to look at myself in the mirror, it might not have been as confident. That self-esteem piece might not have been there.
Yeah.
But I certainly externally was always quite a confident kid. And then, I think honestly what happened where it all changed was when I was really lost in school. I didn't really know what to do. I wasn't actually, like if you look at me now and where I was, like I'm 22 now. I turned 23 in January next year, in a month.
Wild, dude. Wild.
Yeah. And for me, when I was 16, I was still energetic and extroverted and fun and exciting and confident, but I was extremely lost. I had all of these people that were studying to become a nurse and doing all this stuff, and I hated school so much. I just didn't like doing any of the work. I got the girls to do my assignments, and then I had my parents who were scared because they were getting calls from the teachers saying that he's not coming to school and all of this, and then dad's wanting to move schools and take me to a better school, and then when I say I'm not going to go to uni, they're all freaking out. And here I am going, I don't want to go to uni. I don't want to try at school, but I also don't know what I want to do. And so it started there. And I think where the confidence comes from is by getting back up every single time I get slammed in my face. I honestly think it comes down to all of those times where I've tried something and then I've fucked up. I hope I'm allowed to swear on here. And then I've got back up and then I've tried again and it still hasn't worked. And then to the point where you get so far in where you go, like, well, there's actually no other option.
Yeah.
And so through that, you gain confidence. It's just like layers of paint that build a mountain, like all those little layers of paint, all of those little things, the little victories, the little failures, all of those things slowly build up. And I think that overall develops this level of confidence in yourself. For me, that's probably where I would say it comes from. It's a level of delusion too, right?
Yeah.
All of us have this little bit of delusion. Mine's probably on the extreme end. But it's a superpower, right? A lot of things are blessings and curses in life, but I would say that's a superpower.
So good. So 22 turning 23.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with the tall poppy?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I would say the age thing isn't the tall poppy thing for me. It was early days, but I switched that quite early on. I switched that age and naivety to my advantage when I was younger, and I think that my age and my naivety was actually my superpower, wasn't the problem. Everyone was coming to me saying, oh, you're too young to be doing this. Oh, you're just naive. You'll figure it out. And they would look at it as a negative. And I went, hang on. I'm trying to be a successful businessman, which I was at the time. I was trying to be this Mr. CEO guy, which is not me anymore. But there's been a shift in my life since then. But I was trying to be this business guy. And I'm going, okay, all of the people that I want to meet and these mentors and these people that have achieved all the things that I want in my life, they're going to look at me and go, oh my God, he's young and giving it a crack. And they're going to be extra invested into me because of my age. If I was going into the rooms that I was going into and meeting these people like Michael Lane and things of that nature when I was 30 or 40, do you think they would treat me the same way or want to help me out the same way as opposed to when I'm 18? So I flipped the age and was like, that's actually my superpower. Let's make the most of being young. In the right rooms when you're young, that's your superpower because you're in this room and everyone else is 40 and you're 18 or 17 and you've been dropped off there because you don't even have a car. All of a sudden people go, what is this guy doing here? And they're invested in you. And so I would say that yeah, that's a superpower. But the tall poppy syndrome for me has been an interesting one. It's probably more so when externally things look like they're going so well, but internally they're actually really not. And where the tall poppy syndrome really kicked in was when I first started blowing up on social media because I was getting hundreds of thousands of followers, hundreds of millions of views, and I couldn't even make any money. I was really struggling and I was in debt and I was in a low and I had no idea what to do. But then I'm getting hundreds of messages every day about how amazing I am. And you've got this polarity between like everyone thinks I'm doing so well, but I'm actually extremely struggling. I'm in the lowest point I've ever been. And so like that's when it kicked in terms of tall poppy syndrome. And it's been a hard thing to navigate, but now being on the other side of that and actually being in a really good place financially, mentally, physically, everything, I'm not feeling that as much, if anything really at all at the moment.
That's interesting, right? I was speaking to someone who was explaining to me this whole notion of all these content creators, like you know, hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of views, and they're fucking poor and they're not monetizing and they don't know how to monetize. They don't have any sales background. Like they don't have any business acumen. Like what was the pivotal moment when you became aware of that where you're like, hey, I need to fucking change this? Like what did you do? Did you go get a sponsor right away? Like how did you break through that?
Well, I was trying so hard and that's the thing is because I have the sales background, I have the business background. I treated it like a business. I just couldn't get anyone to transact. It was a whole thing, man. Like I remember my first thing, I launched like a free free program to grab people's emails, and I got 5,000 emails, and then I built this like program to take people through off the back of it, and I launch it and I sell 0. And I'm like, okay, I've got all these followers. I just got 5,000 people, and I'm getting messages of how great this free thing I gave them was. And then no one could buy a $99 product, zero $99 sales, 0. And so it wasn't like I wasn't trying. I kept trying time and time again. And if we tie it back to at the start, where you asked me where the confidence comes from, it's beyond confidence now. It's like a really weird feeling where I have been in such lows that, in my eyes anyway, that I'm not afraid of any lows. I could I could go bankrupt tomorrow, and I'll probably have a little giggle.
I love that. I fucking love that.
Because like, and this is the crazy thing is like, okay, if I went bankrupt tomorrow and got everything taken away from me and I had no money, mate, I was 20 grand in debt and rent was due 2 weeks ago, a year ago today.
Insane.
It's like, that's a lot worse. And did I make it out of that? Yes, I did. It's a delusion. It's not a delusion. It's a confidence in myself that everything's going to be okay. And I think where that transfers into my life is like people around me in my life, they know that I really don't sweat about anything. Don't really care. I don't care about spending money. I don't really care about, like, nothing's on a pedestal. It's all removed. And I think because I've had so much expectation in my life, I've been disappointed so many times in my life. And I've also just like tried so many times and nothing's worked time and time again. I've lost money. I've made money. At the end of the day, everything's still the same. I'm still me. Like, I'm like, what do I got to lose? Nothing really matters. People seem to be drawn to me. Like, if I need something, I'm sure I can get it. What's there to stress about? And the realization for that as well was a big driver is so many people spend so much time stressing over little things.
True.
And if you remove all of those stresses, you'll have so much more happiness and peace in your life. Prime example, like coffee prices going up from $5 to $5.50. Doesn't matter. Stop complaining. Your fuel prices, if it goes from $1.80 to $2.20, your fuel tank's going to cost an extra $10, whatever it is. It does not matter. And I think, people in low socioeconomic states can probably get a bit angry at me when they say that, and they can, get a bit tense. But like, honestly, for me, that's the lens that I found the most amount of happiness in, because when I remove all of those worries, like, I don't look at the prices in the shops. I don't look at the fuel price. Even if I had $10 in my bank account, I wouldn't care if the coffee was $5 or $5.50. I've done it before. I've spent my last $5 on a coffee and gone, I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think it's just having this abundance mindset has actually been something that's allowed me to have a lot more just peace and enjoyment in my life.
Let's talk about mindset, because I mean, you seem pretty wise for your age, right? And it seems like you've done a lot of work on yourself to really, I think, like have that abundance mindset and to like push through like so much, like with resilience, like you're sharing. Is there like a routine you follow? Is there been mentors that have helped you build that mental muscle, or is it just you failed so much? Like, what is it? Was it a combination of things?
Well, Ben, like I'd like to ask you, like, who do you think your biggest teacher is?
Myself.
Yeah. I would say my biggest teachers is my past self and my past lovers. And, you learn a lot about yourself from ex-partners and relationships, firstly, but then you also learn a lot about you from you. When you try things, you learn what you don't like, you learn what you do like, you sharpen that sword. And mindset, I think you can get motivation from external sources, but the fuel, the discipline to keep you going has to be within.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be within yourself. I would say for me, it's this, as I said earlier, it's this like, it's beyond like it's just like there's no other option for me now. It's beyond that. But I mean, the mindset, honestly, it's just from, I'm trying to think of some way that's an easy way to explain it, but it's just so simple to me. It's literally just a way of living for me. It's like, okay, the ice bath when I wake up in the morning, it's not like a question that I do that. I just do the thing straight away, right? It's like, okay, you roll out of bed, you walk downstairs with a towel over your shoulder and you set a timer and it's got 3 minutes, 15 seconds. So you've only got 15 seconds to get in it, which means you'll have 3 minutes in the ice. It's not even a thing. And I think all of those things are just like part of my life. And through that, it just stacks these little bits of confidence that I follow through on the things that I want to do. And then with that creates this mindset that's a bit more bulletproof. I've also seen people in my life sweat over small things that don't actually matter, and it really ruins their days, weeks, months, years, life.
Oh, that's so good.
And when you remove that, it's the most freeing thing. It's like you just take this massive backpack off and you feel so much lighter. And I felt that. And it's like every time something creeps back in, which is like adding weight to this backpack, I'm going, what am I doing? I don't need this anymore. But yeah, I would say it's all internal from the mindset point of view, but there's people that help and there's little messages that I hear online, which I love, like Jocko Willink, for example, where he just says good for everything, fucking good. It's like anything that happens in your life, good. There's a level of ownership that you can take, and there's a level of empowerment when you take ownership on your life and you actually go, okay, it's on me. Like no one else is going to come fix it. And so I think that's just a lens that I like to use.
Have you heard of Dan Martell?
Yeah.
I was at a 2-day event just last week with him in Manly, like a small group of entrepreneurs. He was talking about not sweating the small stuff. He's like, you can't grow if you're going to like just dwell on small shit. And that was really interesting. But getting back to the mindset, he thinks wide. Like he thinks very big. He had a watch on, which was, I didn't ask him, but I did some research, which was worth like $500K. And he bought that in order to get to somewhere where he wanted to get to. And so he kind of does things a bit unusual. But I walked away from that event thinking, well, now I've got to integrate because, you know, you can hear people talk about this and that, but then you got to actually do the work yourself. So I find like it's quite useful to like get a few things from people that you're inspired by, then you just got to get to work and execute and make it happen. So like you got to change that proximity of people you're hanging with and just, you know, make changes and audit your circle and do things. Like you've actually got to do things in order then to get that result. And I think most people, they don't integrate. They just read a book, they turn up to a seminar, they go somewhere, they do fuck all after, nothing changes. They get an immediate dopamine hit and makes them feel accomplished because they've gone to some event. Yeah.
But then they go back to their life and then 6 months later they rock up to another event and they get another little dopamine hit. And then they're still in the same place. Seminar junkies, it's the favorite. It's what they are.
Yeah.
And that was I went to so many seminars and events and stuff back in the day, and I'm so grateful for them. For me now, it's more so like only going to things that are relevant to what I actually need to do in my life right now, because then you just get information overload. What I'm also finding is the more I create, the less I consume. And I think the more I create, the less I consume, the more I come up with answers based on my own things, my own life. Because when you're only creating and you're consuming far less, like I follow some people on Instagram and stuff, but I never scroll. And it's a weird thing because the more I create, like I post four pieces of content I post 2 on my podcast page, 2 on my main page every day. And there's so much going out. So when you tie all of that in, I'm on the platform so much with posting that, responding to comments and DMs and all of this. It's just like I'm on. The last thing I want to do is scroll. And so I don't actually do the consuming very much. So I'm finding all of my lessons that I'm learning recently are just from myself and the reflection and listening to my own podcast back and things like that. This is where the the main lessons are coming from and where the downloads are, where I'm learning things from, I would say.
So like a deep level of self-awareness.
I spoke to someone on my podcast last week in Sydney, and it was funny. He actually said, he was like, sometimes I wish I could be less self-aware because my mind would be so much more calm. It's like I respect someone. I look at someone that has a simple life, that can get home from their job and put a movie on and eat dinner and then, have a hot chocolate and go to bed. And I look at that and I go, that is so cool, because I can't do that. I can't put a movie on without my mind racing about all the things that I should be doing. And so many things in life are double-edged swords, and the blessings and curses. And would I rather be less self-aware? No. I'm grateful for the awareness that I have. It's helped slingshot me to where I am today, and it's going to slingshot me to where I'm going to be. But in saying that, it's not all positive. It's like your mind is just racing and you can't really stop and relax. And so that's just one of the costs. But yeah, being self-aware is definitely a big part of who I am.
So would you say you're a content creator? Is that, if you were to label yourself as something, like you said earlier, like you didn't want to be a CEO, you thought you did. Like now, if you look at yourself, are you a content creator?
I'm quite broad. I'm a curious educator.
Curious, okay.
And the reason I say that is because I like if you were to ask me what I do right now, or if we're at a dinner table and they ask me what I do, whatever, I say I'm a podcaster. It's what I do. It's where the most amount of my money comes in through my podcast sponsorships, and that's my main thing. That's what I do. However, I want to write books. I want to tour the world. I want to speak to the most interesting people that live by the rock out in Uluru, that love their life, and I'm just curious because I want to know why. And I really want to learn those lessons from that person that lives out in the rock, and then I want to educate them to the people all around the world so that other people can get insights on why this guy loves his life that lives out by the rock at Uluru, all an example. But I would like to think that what will stand the test of time is that I'm a curious educator. I'm extremely curious. I get excited about learning new things and understanding new things. And the reason I get even more excited about learning them is because then I get to go and educate them and teach them. And so overall, I would say that is me. And I think if you ask me that in a decade time, I could still truly say that. Whereas podcaster or content creator, whatever that might be, it's a bit boxed in. I don't like being boxed in. I really like to be broad and not attach my identity to a specific thing, rather an action or a way of living, like curious educator. That's why it's in my bio. That's my purpose statement. I'm a curious educator, I would say.
I love it. Purple cow. What's the untold story behind what you do today?
What do you mean?
Like, what's a story that you haven't shared publicly, that hasn't been recycled a lot, that is behind like who you are and what you're doing today? Because, you're unique. You're a unique guy. You're doing big things. You're fucking confident. You're curious. You're tackling the world. Like, is there a story that, you haven't shared or that doesn't get a lot of publicity that's really the fabric behind the guy you are today?
I mean, there's a lot of different stories. I'm quite open book and I do share a lot of stuff. I think a big question I get asked a lot is like, where's the drive coming from? And, it's such an interesting thing because I answer it differently depending on the day because, it's just depending on how you're feeling, if you want to share something more surface level, how deep you want to go and what it actually means. And when I reflect on that question a bit, there's so many components to it. Like if you look back to childhood Chris and little Chris that, was fishing in Airlie Beach and, after school getting on the bus and going over to Hamilton Island to sit and make a jigsaw puzzle while my dad was playing the piano at the bar. You know, and I was just there, just like as this young guy, you know, and then fast forwarding and like going and seeing him, this guy progress into like meeting new people and hanging out with people that were quite funny and reckless, and then he onboards a little bit of those characteristics, and then he moves to the Gold Coast and meets this other guy who is extremely reckless and weird and quirky and funny, and he onboards this quite unique humor about him. And if someone from the outside in was looking, you'd probably see this young Chris as like a reckless, weird, cool kid that kind of run amok, wasn't serious, not going to do anything cool with his life, probably just going to smoke bongs and you know, be a bit of a weirdo that, like, you know, walks around anyway in the clouds. But then what happens is you meet another guy, Harry, who had a really rich and wealthy family, and his dad had a Ferrari and you know, an Aston Martin and a really nice house, and would buy a Range Rover, but they're not like the color, so he would sell it. And you would, you know, and I experienced this side, which was I'd never seen anything like it before. And I'm tying into where the drive comes from in a second. I just wanted to see this progression because, you know, one of my favorite quotes is from Steve Jobs. He says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards and looking at the life that you've lived. And going to this house and started living with Harry and experiencing this drive he had for AFL and his sport, but then he had this wealthy family, but then, you know, there was a little bit of toxic environment there and there was a bit of resentment with the wealth, and Harry hated the fact that he had wealth and didn't want to drive a nice car to school and all of this, and experiencing that polarity. But then I grew up with no money and I was like, like, it's cool that you've got a cool car. And then next minute you progress to the next best friend, Sam, who's still my best friend today, and he was really businesslike and no funny, no weird, no quirk, no nothing, just serious. And then you look at that and it's like, okay, he brings me more to there and I brought him down to here, and we can create this character that's quite universal. And so I'm looking at the progression of my life. And when I sit here today and someone asks me, what is the drive? I just look at the younger version of me and I look at how much has changed in my life. All the challenges that he faced, that I witnessed my family face, with divorces in the family and struggles with money and arguments and sweating all of the small stuff. I look at the little Chris there that would get his bike at Christmas as a present and go ride around and escape the house. I look at him and I go, fuck, like, I want to make this guy proud. I want to make that life that he was living, with the challenges with his family and the divides and different stuff and the moving around and the separation of parents and all of the stuff that happened. I want to make that guy proud because I know he was trying, because he kept changing, he kept meeting new people, he kept evolving. And so I just want to keep going in that path. I just want to keep on evolving and then ultimately get to a stage where all of these small things and all of these problems and challenges that my family have faced, they never have to go through again. And I can be able to provide for all of those people and the family that I get to hopefully build in the future, provide a life that doesn't have these challenges. I think there needs to be challenge, because that's where the obstacle is the way, that's where the growth happens. But so many of the little things, the sweating of all the small stuff, I don't want that in any of my family's life. And being able to create this inspiration and be this beacon for that, to make people inspired and make people know that they can chase their dreams and live their life and lead by example in that way, is something that really drives me.
I love that. So we were talking before we went live that your best mate Sam, you guys, when you started that first company, like, you couldn't sign the docs because you weren't 18. Like, did you form a friendship just before that company and then you kind of embarked then? Like, or how did that look? Yeah,
so we played AFL in the Gold Coast Suns Academy at a high level together from a young age, from 14, and we weren't really friends because I was this cool kid captain guy and he was this weird guy that asked all the questions and like was just weird and we didn't get along. But we got injured one time and we were in rehab together, recovering from our injuries. I think he had done a collarbone and I did my hamstring. And so we got chatting and this was early grade 12, so we'd just turned 17. And we got chatting and he told me about the stuff that he was working on and he said that he had just dropped out of school. And he's this smart guy, straight A student, and he dropped out of school. And I'm here lost going, I don't like school, I don't know what to do. And so I'm just going, what are you doing, mate? Like, I want to learn more. And so that's where it started. And later on in that, we basically just clicked from that moment, started hanging out every day, 3:30 a.m. We'd get up, we'd drive to the gym, we'd meet at the gym in Burleigh Heads at 4:15 a.m. every morning. I would go to school after that gym session. He would then go to work. And it just every day we just committed to this thing and I just switched overnight and like started listening to all these podcasts and audiobooks and reading and going to events and all this stuff and day and night difference from the start of grade 12 to the end. But yeah, the first company we started, we were selling products over in the States on Amazon. We had like high-end ceramic products that we were building ourselves, like they weren't white labeled products. They were like our own molds and creating these products over in China and selling them over in the States. And I was trying to do that and I was doing product research during maths class at school while the girls were doing my assignments. And he was, working at a recovery center and then a few months later he got an opportunity to work with Michael Lane down in Sydney and he packed up shop and he left and I ended up just lost all my friends at school because of this pivot and I wasn't supported for the pivot and then he went to Sydney. So I didn't actually have him there either. So it was just like a FaceTime call. I had a girlfriend at the time, but I didn't really have many other friends, lost them all. And then eventually after that I moved to Sydney down there with him and that kickstarted the next business and the next one and the partying phase and the working behind a bar and the sales jobs and the other businesses and then the social media and that's kind of where it all progressed.
Yeah. Rewinding back, so you said you thought you wanted to be a CEO and then realised that wasn't you. Like, at what point did you go like, fuck, this is not who I am? And then what did you realise you actually wanted to be or did you know that?
It only happened recently. It happened this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I had an AI startup this year that I closed down that I was the CEO of and I closed down just before probably mid this year. We closed that down. And yeah, it was still, that dream was still alive and I still get that fire, that burning fire to start something and build something great. I still have that entrepreneurial nature about me. I'm just not sure if I'm going to be the guy in the driver's seat moving forward. And the pivot in my life was one moment. I've spoken about it a couple of times. This moment kind of was the catalyst. I think it was brewing, but like the catalyst for the realization was I was with this girl walking in Burleigh Heads and we were watching the sunrise and we were on the Burleigh Hill watching the sunrise and basically we were down on the bottom of the hill and I look back behind me and on the hill there was this lady in her 40s holding her 7-year-old son in her arms. And when I looked back, she was just looking at me. She just locked eyes with me. And I looked at her and you could tell she was broken. And she didn't even say hello. The first words that left her mouth, she said, "You've saved my life on multiple occasions," she said. And I'm just sitting here with this girl. This girl's first date. She didn't even know what I did. And that's what she said. And I just freeze up. I'm like it was like 5 a.m. and I'm just hear that come out of her mouth. And she's holding her 7-year-old son and you could tell she was broken and those words left her out and she could feel it. She was in disbelief that she could see me in real life. She was like, I can't believe he's here. She's like, you were my comfort person. I looked forward to listening to you every single day. And I hear this and I can't help but go give her a hug, hear about her story. She's gone through a massive divorce. She lives in a van with her son now and she's going through really challenging times. And my videos online that I just, throw away in passing, don't really think they're that deep, saved her life on multiple occasions. And the feeling I got in that moment was this euphoric feeling that no drug in the world could ever make me feel. It was the most euphoric feeling I've ever felt. And I just went, and I was so money driven at that time. And I just went, if I make people feel like that, all the money in the world will come.
So good.
And I went, I need it. I'm not this money driven CEO looking for this massive exit, because that's all I was hungry for, starting these tech companies, these AI businesses, thinking I was going to be a multi-millionaire at 20 when I was 17 trying to start these things. I was humbled with that thought. But the message behind this was it switched from being money-driven to impact-driven. And then I started focusing from that moment. I remember I just froze. I was like, what did just happen? I mean, I had people come up and say things like, I've saved my life before. I've saved their life before. I've had that before. But when I saw how broken she was and how much it meant to her, I was just like, holy shit, this is someone that's run into me. What about the thousands of people around the world that have never had this girl had never messaged me before, never sent me a message or anything. So all the thousands of people all around the world, my audience is only 10% in Australia, like thousands of people all around the world would feel the same way and they're just never going to meet me. And I'm like, if I just keep doing that, all the money will come. And that moment onwards, I switched all my focus, just make impact, spend more time responding to messages, create content, push out a message, really reflect and come up with some really resonatable ideas and relatable ideas and just really try and make that impact. And more money than I ever made in my life just started flowing in.
It's epic.
Everything just flowed in. Everything that I wanted flew in abundance. And it came from being like this, I need all of this thing, to no, I'm choosing everything now.
Oh, it's so good.
And that was where it all changed for me. And it was this ego death going, no, you're not actually that guy. You're not this business guy. You're very competent at it. Like you can sit down. I speak to high-level business people all the time and speak for 2.5 hours on my podcast with Toby Pierce just about business, right? I can do it and I love it and I get energy and I thrive about it. But changing people's lives is a feeling that's way beyond, making a little bit of money.
It's incredible you had that clarity and just like tuned in and went, fuck it, like I'm going impact, chasing it. Because most people, they're chasing the money. It's very hard.
And I think it's okay though. I think chasing money is okay. And I certainly did it for a long time. And again, it comes down to this confidence piece. Like when that happened as well, I took all my programs out of my bio. I took my website out of my social media. And I was making good money just selling programs, PDF on a Shopify store. Every day, all these sales were coming in. And one of the things there was like, I looked at all the greats in the world, the biggest names in the world. They don't sell programs. Like you look at like Chris Williamson and Alex Mosey and these, like they don't have like PDF programs that they sell on a Shopify store. And I thought, if the goal's trusted voice, writing books, touring the world, I need to be these great people now. And it comes down to this absurd confidence again, where it's like I took a massive pay cut, took all the programs out of my bio because I was like, that's not me. I'm not just here selling programs. I need a bigger scale here. And then took that out and just focused all on the podcast. Podcast blew up, became one of the biggest educational podcasts in the country. All of the sponsors started flowing in. And the money that I was making from the programs was well replaced with all the brands that came on board. And wasn't immediate. But again, it was one of those risks where I went, no, I'm going to be the biggest in the world. Like, I don't need to be doing this. this is just this short-term money grab that I don't actually need. It's like, take a punt on yourself again, mate. You've done it before and you'll do it again. And then by doing that, I think from an energetic standpoint, made me stop even focusing about it, put my back against the wall a little bit more, so I had a bit more drive. And then I went all in on the podcast from that moment, and everything's changed since.
When you decided to go all in on the pod and, let's say, consistently putting out content, like, is this a year ago? Like, what's context for time?
So in June last year, I had, what's that, 18, 19 months? No, June last year. So whatever that is, time's flying.
Yeah.
June last year, I had 300 followers on Instagram. And my mentor sent me a challenge to post a video every day of June last year.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken, lost, failing business. And I was like, scrap that, I'll do 2. I got nothing to lose. I'll do 2 vids a day. And then by the end of June on TikTok, Instagram combined, had over 100,000 followers. Whole life changed. And then by November, I had like 700,000 on all the platforms. And the podcast, I launched the Pocket in February this year. And so
insane.
I launched it in February this year. And then in June, I believe it was, we hit number 2 on the charts for education podcasts. And we were up in the top 5 for like 4 weeks straight, 5 weeks straight. We're in top 5 for education on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And we were in, we got down to 14th in the country, all podcasts. And I launched it this year, but it's like just one of those things where there was that pivot, right, where I went all in, decided to just go all in on that and drop everything else. Massive risk. These things aren't cheap. I'm using 4K production studios, money I didn't have. And I was like, I'm going to be the biggest. I'm like, it's going to happen. And the crazy thing is my goals were bigger than I achieved. And what I achieved was unheard of, fastest growing in the country. It's like, but I was that confident and delusional that it was going to work. And it just so happened that it did.
So retrospectively, like, let's say looking back at Insta, when you started like getting committed, regular posting, like in terms of why people were resonating, was it just like authenticity? Were you just showing up, just being you? Or like, what was it?
Yeah. I just pulled on the heartstrings. I think everything comes down to emotion and feeling. So how do you make someone feel something, right? And like there's all of these content gurus out there. I'm over them. First 3 seconds, hook, like trending audio, all this bullshit. Like it's all bullshit. It doesn't matter. How do you make someone feel? Because if you make someone feel a certain way, they're going to want to share it. They're going to want to save it. They're going to want to listen to it again. They're going to want to watch more of your stuff. The algorithm's going to go, oh, you kept this person on the platform longer. I'm going to push it. Quit all the bullshit. Like there's so much fluff. Go after feeling. If you are watching your video that you're about to release and you finish watching it and you don't even feel something yourself, how do you expect anyone else to feel for it? And so when it comes to content, and this is the thing that's interesting, is when I speak to other podcasters, because the short form of my podcast has been, yes, the conversations have been great and people have loved them, but the short form is what's grown the show. Like people ask me all the time, it's like, oh, but I get that feeling with a video, but then it still doesn't go viral. And and then they go, so like, what's the trick? And I go, you can't expect everyone to go viral. But your problem is one video potentially max out of your week episode gives you that feeling. I'm posting 2 videos every day. So I'm doing 14 a week when I was blowing up. I'm doing 14 a week. And I'm trying to go after that feeling with every single one that I put out, not just one clip. It's like, of course your one clip's not going well. I'm trying to do it with every single clip that comes out. And so, yes, every clip might not go viral when I feel a certain way. But if I'm doing 14 more of those than you are, I've got a 14 times chance of going more viral than you. And it's a compound effect. If I'm making 14 videos that make you feel something, I'm getting better at knowing how to make someone feel something 14 times quicker than you. And then I'm also compounding, because when one thing goes viral, the likelihood of all the other ones going viral is higher. And so I was going, I'm just playing at a different, I'm just like, okay, I'm not playing at your level. I'm playing at a different game. Content creation is an interesting thing. And I feel like it's become a specialty of mine. Like I've cracked the code. I know what works. And it's different. It's a different approach to all of these gurus that have 1,000 followers or 100,000 fake followers that tell you how to gain an audience online.
Playing a different game. It seems like it's interesting. It seems like you've like cracked the care code. Like you really care. Like you're giving that example, like trying to get one viral video. No, you're trying to get every video viral. And like when I hear that, I'm like, you care a lot. And I think a lot of people, I'm generalizing here, but a lot of people who are pushing out content, like they don't care enough. Like, you know what I mean? They're just doing it to do it because that's what you do. And then some guru says, hey, this is the playbook around how to get virality or how you do it. And then they just follow it. But like they're not following like what they think is true to them.
Yeah, it's entirely true. And they're putting out good content and they think that good content is okay because it's not bad content. Good may as well be shit. And the reason for that is because everyone is in that same lens. Oh, it's good content. It's not great though. It's like the difference between good and great is day and night, because the good merges in the crowd with everyone else. So you're in the same boat as the shit content.
Yeah.
But when you do great content, which by the way is like 10% more effort to make it great. It's like do a few more crops and cut the blanks out, or leave certain blanks in and do a little zoom when it's emotion provoking, and make sure the audio in the background's good. How's the editing look, and are you using a studio? Like all of these different things, right? It's like good and great is day and night difference. And when you do great, you like poke your head out of the crowd and all of a sudden it becomes so much easier. I got asked this question the other day, probably about a month ago now. What makes you more successful than most? Quite a broad question, but something came to mind straight away. I said there's two things. I'm playing a different game than most, and I'm playing the game longer than most. And so playing a different game than most, let's use the podcast as an example. Everyone launches a podcast and they compare their podcast to the other shit podcasts around them.
Yeah.
So that's their competition. And I go, well, no, the audience, the person listening to my podcast is a mum driving to work, as an example, and she gets 45 minutes in her morning and she can put on anything she likes. It's all free. Any podcast she likes. So your competition isn't the shitty podcast next to you. Your competition is Joe Rogan, Diary of a CEO, Chris Williamson. Yet you're comparing yourself to the shit podcast next to you and expecting the results of the great. So playing a different game than most, I'm comparing myself to the best people in the world, not the shit podcast. So if I can execute at the quality of theirs, if not greater, and the quantity of theirs, if not greater, and then the second part, play the game longer, not quit too soon, I'm destined to achieve that greatness. Because it's like I'm playing at their level in every facet, and I'm playing the game longer, so I'm not quitting when it gets too hard. How can you not win? If you got some conviction behind your voice, some passion, you're learning, you're improving, you're listening back to your own podcast so you can find your errors. Time's just catching up. And it's a different lens. It's not about bullshit hooks and the time of day you're posting and all of this stuff. Like, how do you capture someone's feeling and do it at the best standard? and just keep going even when you get 2 views.
So you said you're posting 4 a day, 2 from Poddy, and then 2 just, I guess, you're just creating those posts. What's the ideation process behind like you creating content each week or each month? Like, are you allocating dedicated time to really go through a thought process, or does it come naturally to you and you write it down? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm not being consistently 4 a day now at the moment, but it reflects on the growth, right? Like, I know that when I do that and I do it at the high standard, shit blows up. It's crazy. And I'm not saying anyone can just go and start posting 4 videos a day and they're going to go viral, because, again, you need to apply all the principles, and I've made thousands of videos so I know what works and what doesn't. It's different, right? But podcast page, I've got 2 editors. Guy makes me trailers, guy makes me clips. I also make my own clips. My clips are always better than the editors, and that's just because, again, I've made thousands of them. I know what works.
Is that because, like, from timestamping, or is it?
Well, I might get like apart from 5 minutes in the episode and then apart from 35 minutes that's linked, and I'll merge them for a clip. And
smart.
I might take like 9-minute segment and cut it all the way down to a minute 29 to make the guest sound like an absolute beast and articulate the story to perfection. So then for a clip, it goes viral. There's a lot that goes into it. I might spend 90 minutes each clip making it.
Wow.
Yeah. Editing clips for the podcast takes 15 hours a week.
Wow.
Yeah. But then you grow the show. And
yeah, of course.
It's right? And so
just the effort, though, that's getting injected into that.
And no one sees that.
Yeah.
They see a clip and they go, oh, it's a nice clip. It's cool. And, you know, when I sat down with Kyle from Pivotal Conversations and we were talking about where I should be allocating my resources. Like, I've got editors and like, what team should I be getting on board? And my thing is, I should get the editors on board so that I can free up, because I'm spending more time on that than anything else. And then Kyle goes to me, what's grown your show the most? The clips. So what's been the most needle moving thing that has got your show to where it is today, and it's going to continue to keep growing the show to where it's going to be? The clips. Why would you outsource that if that is your superpower? So I'm trying my best to get back to that. But podcast, it's creating clips, so going through the episode and things of that nature. The personal stuff just depends, because it might just be a one-take video in the car and I'm just got an idea and I pull my phone out while I'm driving. It's in the green screen, I'm not actually driving, and then film it and just talk. And I've gotten to a point now where I don't script any of it. It's just off the cuff. So good. All of them. And so they're all just off the cuff in the car. Or it might be a fitness video where it's a lot of editing and they never perform as well. But like a gym workout or an ad for my sponsors or whatever it might be. So, you know, there's no structure. I don't do a content day. It's just like a everyday. And the thing is, I think that's what makes it so candid too. Just like being able to come up with an idea and execute it straight away. I do this full time. It's not like it's my side project. So it's just making sure that I'm making things candidly in an authentic way. Yep. So things are pretty last minute a lot of the time. If someone's really organized and they see my day, they would probably have a panic attack. Yeah.
Do you have a full-time videographer?
I did, not at this time of year. I had a full-time videographer when I was in Melbourne and when I travelled around America. He's over visiting his family in Perth, but in the new year potentially. But again, coming down to this resource piece is going like, I'm not in a position where I can hire everyone right now. Like, I'm making good money right now, but I can't hire 5 full-time staff. Yeah. And so like, it's just picking the right people to spend the money on, because it's not cheap having full-time videographers. And so just figuring out the best resources to have. But yeah, full-time videographer, I think the next hire will be a PA, organise guests and things like that. Someone full-time, local is what I would be looking for. And then, just kind of slowly growing that team out in the best way possible. The best part about it is you don't need a massive team, but also like to help grow the show and where I'm trying to head, I kind of need those resources.
Where do you think content's going? Like looking forward, with what you know now, and I guess information that you're consuming and people you're inspired by. Like, where do you see it going, and what do you see happening?
More and more, I think people are going to follow people.
Yeah, I agree.
And that shows. People follow people. Prime example, my podcast page just had a photo of the logo as the profile picture, and I was gaining all these views, but I wasn't converting many followers. And I changed the podcast page to a photo of my face with the logo, and then I did the pocket with Chris Griffin. Same views, followers skyrocketed.
Interesting.
People follow people. Before More Chris Griffin was my Instagram handle, it was called Primed University. And the goal was to teach fundamental education to help kids bridge the gap from school to the real world. It's a big thing I'm passionate about. Primed University, logo, all these views, no followers. The minute could be coincidence. The minute I change it to More Chris Griffin photo of my face, followers. So people follow people. And I think if we understand that, it's going, the way to get people to follow you is to be authentically you, because people will follow you, not if you're copying someone else, not if you're trying to be someone else. That's like a robot or a puppet. People follow people. Be authentically you and apply all the things we've spoken about today about playing a different game and playing the game longer and making sure you're improving every single day, but being authentically you, not trying to be anyone else. Good artists copy, great artists steal. Take some stuff from other people, make it your own. If you do that and be authentically you and just keep going, it's bound to work. And I think it's a lot more simple than we make it out.
People follow people. You know, I was telling someone the other day, like Tony Robbins, he's been doing it for a long time, like name 56 of his companies. No one, people might know one. And I think he's been doing that for a long time, where he's been so focused on brand and just building his personal profile that it kind of sits underneath him. And I agree. I think like moving forward, it's not going to be the company, the person. It's going to be the person, companies underneath that person. It's why do you think it's going that way?
I just think we all want to be a part of something and we all want to have connection in our life. I think social media took the world by storm and it made people separate, and it created a bit of a divide where there was lack of in-person connection and more of online presence, people glued to their phones. Social skills declined potentially. People felt more insecure. Comparison was a real thing. The more people become more unique and be themselves, and the more people follow people, the more they feel connected, as opposed to just a clog in the wheel. And when it's companies and monopolization of big brands, and then you've got the capitalist nature of the world, which I resonate with, I just think people can slip away from the one thing that actually matters in our life, which I believe is connection. I talk about this a lot, but I think if we can have a connection to ourselves, connection to others, and a connection to a purpose and something to strive towards, like, we're in a really good state. Everyone just wants to be loved. Everyone wants to have connection in their life. And I think the more people be authentic online and the more people are going to buy into you, because people just want to see other people, not robots and clones. And like prime example, like when Alex Hormozi, people love Alex Hormozi. He's been authentically him and he's paved a way, and he has such a unique thing about him. His content, his outlooks, his philosophies, his look, his nose strap, his shoes. He's just been him.
Yeah.
Whenever you see someone online try and copy that, it leaves a bit of a sour taste in your mouth. There's thousands of people that are trying to just be Alex Hormozi, sharing the same regurgitated message, trying to do different quirky things about their style to make them stand out just like Hormozi did. Like, when you be yourself, that's where people are drawn. It's the only thing we have unique about ourselves is us. Why would you try and copy someone else? I think that's why people just want to be connected. They want to feel loved. They want to feel understood. And the more people be themselves, the more people will feel connected.
There's a have you heard of a guy called Naval Ravikant?
Yeah, I love him.
And he talks about, like, your personality is your superpower. Like, people can't fucking copy it. Like, they can't copy your DNA, your person. They can copy your website. They can rip everything off, your product, but they can't copy you. And it's interesting, right? Like, but it's so easy to get caught up because you asked me a question earlier around, I'm paraphrasing, like, who's my biggest teacher? And I said myself. But I actually think, like, my animals, like, I don't have kids, but my animals teach me a lot. And there's teachers all around us. Like, I remember I was in India once and I was on this long drive and I went to this, like, public toilet and there was this guy in there, and I remember just the situation where I just, at that point of time, the humility, like, I just got a very, like, deep learning. And I think that you can learn so much from people, but there's that other side where you've actually got to be you. Like, you don't want to, like, as you said with Hormozi, you don't want to start wearing the, like Andy Elliott's wearing that nose thing now. Like, people copy him. And so the question is, like, you can learn from people, but then how do you then always authentically be you and don't bring their shit into what you're doing?
But again, it's like, if something works and someone else is doing it, fuck it. Who cares? Like do it. The thing is like the nose strip as an example, like my nose is clogged. I got a deviated septum. Like, if I didn't give a fuck as much about what people think, I'd probably wear one all day. In fact, I did. I've done that for a long period of time. I wear them every day. I wear them every night. And Andy Elliott's, for example, he's done a deal with Hostage, which he's got, like, there's an incentive there, I think, to wear as well. But, like, the thing is it's not about that one specific thing. I think you just need to be yourself. And if, like, the reason a lot of people do things is because it works. It's like, there's no need to deny trends, right? It's like, reason things are a trend a lot of time is because it is quite a good thing. It unlocks some level of convenience or some sort of style or whatever it might be. There's benefit to the trend, hence why people do it. I just think it's not about, I think it's more about, like, from a longevity standpoint, like, those are going to fade away. All these different things are going to pass, but, like, you are not. And so just making sure that you're being true to yourself with whatever you're doing. Doesn't mean you disregard what everyone else is doing, but, like, if it serves you and they're doing it, then by all means. If it doesn't serve you, but you're just trying to do it to fit in, then that's probably where I would question that point. Yeah, you said before about learning from people. It's interesting when you said, like, when you're in India, there's always these little moments that happen, and, like, it's so circumstantial, right? Like, depending on the phase of your life that you were in and what's going on. They're just like funny little things that just give you, like, little insights on life that make you cherish things a bit more. I remember there was one time in this is a random thing that I've never spoken about, but it's so random. I was walking out of a festival with my ex-girlfriend in the Central Coast, and I was doing anyway. I wasn't even drinking or anything that day, but I was walking out and I was holding her hand. I'm walking out of the festival, and anyway, there's this old guy that, like, walks up next to us, and we're holding hands. He doesn't even say hello or anything, and he just goes, you can't remember how many girls you've slept with, but you can remember how many girls you've held hands with. And then he just walks off.
Profound.
And it was like this profound thing where I just went, look, I can't lie. That's very true. That's very true. But now, from that one little moment, I cherish holding hands with someone a lot more. I don't just hand out holding my hands with someone. It's like more of a thing for me. from that moment, it made me realize. Now, that's just an example that came to my mind, but there's so many different things in our life that make us put an emphasis on something. It makes us hold more weight or meaning towards a particular thing. And yeah, we can learn a lot of things from different people.
I hadn't heard that one before. Have you, do you drink alcohol?
Little bits, but not very much. I've been through phases. I used to work for an alcohol company and I had massive party phases, but now I don't. I've probably drank 3 times this year, 4 times this year, max, but like 2 beers. I've not been drunk this year.
Nice.
So I don't drink anymore, no.
Coffee?
A lot. Yeah.
How many a day are you punching?
Probably not a lot, but like I'm probably doing like 2 strong coffees a day, depending, maybe 1 strong coffee and some pre-workout and an energy drink.
Nice.
Or an energy drink. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't really do the alcohol thing's an interesting thing as well. The more I've been gaining an audience and, recognition and people stopping me every day on the street and stuff, I'm more cautious about how I'm being seen. Mm-hmm. And I also go back to times when I was very heavy in the drinking and that phase, and it just feels like a bit of like so many people are trying to escape their life, and every time I go into that state, I feel like I need to get out of the state because I love my life and I'm not trying to escape anything. And it's like this weird thing where I escape it. Like there was one time I did some mushrooms and I got put in this, I shouldn't have done mushrooms, and ended up at this like party with lights and stuff. It was full on. But I had this really horrible trip where everyone looked like they were escaping, and I wanted to get out of the trip and I couldn't. And I felt trapped in this thing where it was like, I'm escaping my life, but all I want to do is be back in my life. Mm. And I remember I wrote something in my journal the next day. I said, when you escape your life and all you want to do is go back to your life, that is when you know you're on the right path. And it was like,
I love that.
I was like, boom.
That's it.
I was like, yes. But no, I'm a bit more anxious and a bit more careful when I'm out in public now, especially in those environments.
Interesting. Yeah, I got off the piss probably 11 years ago.
Wow.
And talking about superpowers earlier, like that's been, I reckon, probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
No drinking at all?
I haven't drunk at all. And I haven't missed it one bit. Because I was like waking up, hungover when I was drinking, I was eating shit food, irritating sleep, leading to other drugs. It was just, and I just said, I don't know how I had the wisdom, but like mid-20s, I was like, maybe longer than 11 years actually, but I was like, this is fucked. So stopped it. Stopped caffeine about 10 months ago, and that's been a game changer for me as well. That was like I was a serious addict on that. Like 1 a day or 1 to 2 a day, but like was thinking about it the night before. Right. Wake up in the morning thinking about it. It was like addict behavior. I just got to cut it. So cut that, and heaps better on the nervous system. Like massive difference for me. Mm.
My relationship with alcohol and caffeine is quite good. Like, I can go and have 1 beer and that's fine. Like sometimes I get a beer and I'll have a couple of sips and I go, I don't even feel like this, and I would just leave it there. Like I don't really have this all or nothing approach as much. And with caffeine, like I go days without it. Sometimes I don't like think about the caffeine, but because I do so much training and things as well, I just find it gives me this boost, and I love the way it makes me feel. And obviously that's what someone addicted to caffeine would say. And when you get off it, I know I've heard so many people say how much clarity and energy they have. But it's something for me that I love it, and I love the taste of coffee. And I just feel like it's like I don't think it's hindering me, at least I don't think. So I'm just kind of riding that wave at the moment.
Talk about energy. Like we did a breath work before, thanks to you.
Yeah.
Mate, I had a terrible sleep last night. I reckon I went to bed for me, I usually go to bed like 8:30, 9. I went to bed at 3:30 and just did that session, and boom, like energy. Like was like, wow, like massive, like immediate difference for me. So thank you.
It's great, dude. I love it. It's a hack. It's I don't know why every podcaster doesn't do it. I think it's a secret. It allows you to get into a better conversation sooner, allows you to be more present, more focused, more alert. It's, dude, breath. Something that fucked me up when they said this is he was like, he's like, there was a breathwork facilitator I had on my pod, and he said, you can go for weeks without eating, you can go for weeks without drinking water, but you can only go minutes without breathing. Like, breathing is what keeps us alive. It's probably important that we figure out how to breathe properly. And things like that is like, it's just that superpower. It's the key to unlocking that new part of you that you maybe didn't know you had. And this is why holotropic breath works and more intensive breath works. It's like a natural DMT experience where you have this, it unlocks a new part of your brain, and it's quite a crazy experience, all from breathing. No drugs, no alcohol, nothing. So yeah, breath is really powerful.
Have you exercised with oxygen?
I have. Not a lot, but I also have done like the altitude training and stuff. And I hate the way it makes me feel. Just like, you just feel like you're weak and you can't like, I know it's good, I know it's beneficial, but I don't like the way, a lot of the reason I train is for the mental benefits. And if I feel shit training, I'm not going to do it. So like, I don't really like, even if they say, oh, when you train at altitude, it's like you're getting way better bang for your buck and stuff. I was like, yeah, but I don't feel good after it. So I'm just not going to do it. Like, I don't know. I go off feeling with content, go off feeling. Everything I go off feeling. My whoop, I go off feeling first, and then the data's second. It's like everything's feeling in my life. How do I feel doing this thing, whatever that thing is? Do more of that. That feels good.
Have you invested in a mattress, like a good mattress?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, a good mattress. I mean, I want to get an 8 sleep.
Yeah, I've been on that. I mean, like, it's coming up in my field. Like, people are talking about it. I've been researching into it. I think I'm going to jump on it.
Yeah. Same with me. I've got a good mattress. It's amazing. Massive king bed. Just like, I just love having a good bed. But I mean, maybe one of those memory foam ones. I don't know. I got like one of those old school, just like a proper mattress.
Yeah.
It's expensive, but it's great. It's just a sponge. It's comfy.
Love it. Well, dude, so good jamming with you. Inspiring, just hearing what you're doing, what you're going to be doing. So yeah, really enjoyed it. So thank you.
Thank you, my man. It's been great. First time we've met. We've never even spoke before, man. So
fucking awesome. It's
cool to be able to riff-raff and chat, and hopefully your audience enjoys some of the content today that we spoke about.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man.
Cheers.
Cheers.